Hi, I'm Heather Doyle Fraser. I'm a coach and a creative development editor. And I'm here today with Danielle Baird, graphic designer, brand specialist, and marketing specialist. Say hello, Danielle.
Hello. Great to be here.
And today, in our fourth webinar, we are going to be talking about the detail difference, the art and science of self-publishing. So, where to get started? This area of publishing, self-publishing, is just a really super burgeoning area. It has grown by leaps and bounds over the past 5 years or so. And so we really wanted to kind of talk about this. There are lots of different ways that you can self-publish, from doing something super quick and easy to doing something much more professional and custom and involved. So we're going to try to go through the gamut a little bit. We are not going to hit everything, but we hope to hit a few things here and there.
Yes. And just to kind of help demystify this process, I know when I was talking with people as I was going through self-publishing my book, people maybe aren't even necessarily aware of all of the options that are available to you, via places like Amazon and CreateSpace.
Yeah, that's probably the most well-known self way you can self-publish right now, just because it's so easy. It's right there. I mean, Amazon has become a publisher and a seller of books with CreateSpace. That's how I published my 2 books. Actually, 3 books. Sorry, that's how I published my 3 books. I know that's how Danielle published her book. And with the clients that I have worked with, some of them have used CreateSpace and some of them have gone and used other publishing services. So we can talk a little bit about that. But let's just start by kind of talking about the basics. If you wanted to today, you could take a piece of paper. you could type up 1 page and you could publish it today as a book.
Yeah, and it would be available for sale either later today or tomorrow.
And it could cost you nothing. It could cost you virtually nothing.
Yeah. I mean, if you wanted some of the special features, I think you pay $10. But I think there is a totally free option as well.
Yeah. So that is the most basic, absolutely no bar sort of way you can get into publishing. That's not something that I would recommend.
Just because you can doesn't necessarily mean you should.
Yeah, but it's there. So just so you know that, obviously very few people are going to publish a book with 1 page in it, but you can publish a book inexpensively if that's what you really want to do. Then we have other more traditional publishers or niche publishers. For instance, Hay House, they're a niche publisher, but they're like a traditional publishing house, and they publish, of course, people like, of course, Louise Hay. She started the publishing company, but people like Chris Carr and Wayne Dyer,
Gabby Bernstein, I think.
Gabby Bernstein, and so they have huge people in kind of the self-development industry. Cheryl Richardson, who they're publishing in that niche. They have a self-publishing arm called Balboa Press. One of my clients, actually, we spoke to her last time, Bo Arnold. She is publishing her book through Balboa Press. And then we have then even bigger publishers like Penguin Books. I'm sure lots of you have heard of Penguin Books. They have a self-publishing arm called The Guardian, and I know that there's others too, but I just wanted to give you a little bit of a flavor of the gamut of different types of publishing. And then you can search out all of that on your own. And I have a client who did she did an Indiegogo campaign because the book that she was creating was this gorgeous 4-color glossy paper, amazing book. It's called Return to Ease. And it's using foam rollers and balls to reduce stress on your body and kind of give you an overall feeling of well-being. And there's more than just that, but part of the book has these techniques and movements, and so it's very photo heavy with those types of body movement photos. Then there are also some really amazing landscape photography in there too, with quotes and other things going on. So that book needed to have a really special type of publishing situation. So she ran a really successful Indiegogo campaign. She found, she created her own publishing company. She found a printer. She sourced everything to do that. And it turned out amazingly beautiful.
Yeah, it was a just spectacular project from start to finish. Carolyn did an amazing job. And, like you said, that her book and just the photography and the fact that like beautiful color images were such a critical component. Here's the book.
Yeah, and you can, let's see if I can show you some interior.
I mean, it's just gorgeous. And CreateSpace and a lot of these a little bit more do-it-yourself publishers are really geared toward a black and white text-heavy paperback. They do offer options to print in color. They do have some different paper options, but what you'll find is they have these print calculators on their different websites that you can go through where you can put in, okay, my book is going to be 225 pages. It's going to be, an 8x10 trim. It's going to have bleed or not bleed. And we can talk about all of these terms a little bit later as well. But you can go through and it will tell you kind of what the base price is. And so I know for another book that I worked on, Your Inner Counsel, initially this book, I had an idea, to do the interior in color. And when we priced this book out, she would have had to have charged like $35 just to break even. And that's just really, for this type of book, wasn't feasible and didn't really fit the marketplace. And so, we reworked it to do the interior in black and white.
Yeah. But all that is to say that whatever your book is, there is a way that you can have it published and it can work for you. So that's the beauty of the time that we're in right now. And I think that's why so many traditional publishers are moving into this self-publishing landscape, because it is so easy to be able to do that, but it's not easy to create a really quality book. So that's kind of where the difference is.
Yeah, I think that there are these tools that are made available to you that can help guide you. Like CreateSpace has a cover creator with some templates that you can use. And so if you have no design experience whatsoever, and your budget isn't maybe what you would like it to be right now, like you have an option to go through there and work with their templates. And they also have, I think, an interior design template service for like $100 or $150 where you can kind of just have some basic formatting done. Or you can choose to try to learn that craft yourself and learn how to, use the tools that you have like Microsoft Word to lay out a book. And it's definitely doable. Just like anything, you can kind of put in the hard work and use the tools available to make it happen. But it's challenging, and as a professional, I use tools that make the task of, laying out a book so much easier. There are things like style sheets and beautiful buttons that help me format things with ease. And it is a challenge to use something like Microsoft Word because it's just not built. That tool is not really built to handle book design.
Yeah, if you look on the CreateSpace website, they do have, you know, design, um, they have design templates that are free, which is not really an interior one, but they have the cover design templates that are free. Then they have these design services available. So like there's one called supported, which is the least amount of design given to you, basically. They're just kind of helping you along the way a little bit. That is the 150. And then they have the next step up, which is like $200. And then they have the next step up, which is around $400. And that's for the interior. And then they have cover ones too. So they have templates that are free. Then they have supported covers, which are like 100. And then they have what they call a basic cover, which is 400. And then they have custom covers with what they're calling a custom cover, and that's like 600. So there's just steps along the way for whatever you're looking for. And then you can also hire people like me and Danielle to help you with that process, and you get a super customized experience.
Yeah, and so, it's like book design in this way is a little bit similar to a service like 99 Designs, if you've heard of something like that, or even like Fiverr, where you can, work with a designer who, is a professional, but a lot of the communication, from what I understand, it just happens via email. There might be like a form that you fill out, and you may go back a couple of times, via email, but you're not having those deep, in-depth discussions where they're asking a lot about your business. They're asking a lot about your vision for the book. It's a little bit mass-produced, which totally makes sense for, the price point, and then also the volume that some of those services are dealing with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so like the difference, they might say like, do you have colors that you prefer or something like that? Whereas when Danielle and I were working on my book, she designed my book, and for cover, we went through a lot of different iterations with that, but we started with, talking about color, and it wasn't just what color do you like. It was a really sort of long discussion. How I wanted to feel with the color of the book, and even walking around my house and taking pictures of things, but then like using a Google Hangout like this, and kind of walking around with my computer and be like, I love this color. I have this color all over my house. I would really like to have this color in the cover. And that's what happened.
Yeah, it's one of these things that you might not think about right away, but it's like, this is blue, or it could be green to some people. And I have another cup sitting here, like, this is blue. It's got my smoothie all over it too. But, this is blue, this is blue, this is blue. And so, just for you to talk with someone and be like, well, I like blue. There's this whole range, even, by kind of narrowing it down. And so like Heather said, like when we work together and when I work with my clients, I always start by asking about a lot of like the emotional and just some of those feeling words, because, it's like, well, do you want this to feel rich, or do you want this to feel light? Do you with 40 weeks, we kept coming back to like cozy and homey, and so, I kind of use that as just inspiration for, what we pull into the design. And so like with this, we worked on, I have over there like about a stack of books like this with Celtic knots that I found in an awesome secondhand bookstore. And, we really worked together, sending a lot of stuff back and forth to get to that point.
Mm-hmm. Which you don't have when you're doing something even as like a service or something that's not as custom like that. You do have some level of, you're getting something, but you're not getting that kind of level. And that goes the same for, CreateSpace has different editorial packages too. You can have nothing, or, they do have a copy edit service. that start, and that is just like very technical grammar, punctuation, syntax. And that starts at $160, but that is based on how many words you have in your book. So I'm not sure what that 160, how many words that is, but basically the bigger your book, the more that's going to cost. But that service starts at 160. Then the line edit is like a little bit more than that. You're going to get not only the grammar and the punctuation and that kind of thing, you're also going to get a little more on style, tone, and word choice. Not a ton, but you're going to start to go into that. Then they have this editing package, which, and by the way, those first two options, that's like a once through. You don't get any kind of feedback with the person. You send them your manuscript, they do it, they give it back to you, that's it. Then the next one is an editing package that gets a little bit more into maybe some consistency and some different things like that. Again, based on how long, how many words your book is, that starts at something around like $350. Then they have this like plus package, and that starts around $500. So, but you're still not going to be getting the type of really in-depth discussions. You're just going to be getting, here it is back. Okay, I like this, or I don't like that, I'm gonna change this. Then you might be able, that might have an option to send it back again and have another time, but it's, obviously it starts at a certain number. The more that you have done, the more it costs.
Yeah, and so, again, it's, a lot of those services are very, assembly line, like you're just a manuscript that's going to land in their inbox, and they're going to, go through it and crank it, send it right back out because they've got, another pile waiting. And so, it's just like in working with Heather on my own book, but then also just seeing how we've worked together with clients, she becomes a part of your team just from the very beginning and the inception of your book. You can talk with her about your outline and looking at this introduction chapter, the very first chapter. And what I've seen with clients is how, like, taking something that, is kind of your framework, but then by digging in with Heather and kind of reorganizing it and just clarifying and talking through some of those pieces and moving things around, like by the end of that session in 45 minutes or an hour, like it's almost like this weight gets lifted and I can just feel like the energy and the excitement, like they almost can't wait to get off the phone with us to get going. And it just, I'm just really feeling like this like locomotive energy, like taking forward. And I think that's so exciting, to have that support and to get that clarity, like right off the bat versus like having your stack of manuscript pages that like maybe just weren't quite right, or you kind of wandered off in some direction. And now you have the monumental task of sifting through and editing all of that. Like it just, just from observing, it just feels like it's an easier process when you're kind of getting that support from the beginning and kind of course correcting just gently, as you go along.
Yeah, it definitely makes a difference having something starting with you versus coming in where you think that you're kind of at the end, but maybe you aren't at the end once you get talking about it. So having that support at the beginning really does kind of change the way that your progression goes. So obviously there's lots of different ways that you can do this, and there's many different options, and you just have to find the one that works the best for you at this time. And so that's why we wanted to present it to you that way. In terms of kind of the details that are all, we talked about things that are really important, obviously, but then there's all these details at the end of, like applying for a copyright, maybe creating an imprint, buying your ISBN, which is, if you don't know, it's the number on the back of your book that they track your book by in bookstores, on Amazon, basically anywhere that it's sold, so that they can see how many copies that you have sold and that kind of thing. It's a cataloging number. So buying that, just all of those little details that add up, and all of a sudden you think,
Yeah. And even, with that, like sometimes it starts to be like getting close to like going to print, and it's like, oh, do I want cream paper or do I want white paper? Like you can wait till almost the very last minute to pick that, and if you're doing the self-publishing, like when you go, I'm most familiar with CreateSpace, but you go in and there's just screen after screen after screen of like little choices. And, if you're not quite familiar with some of the terminology, like it can be a lot to kind of navigate right there at the finish line.
Well, and even if you are familiar with the terminology, the first time that I did it, and I even was like, I'm not really. I mean, I know what all these words mean. I've been around these words for a long, long time, and yet I'm confused. I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to do here. And so, even for me, at that point, I just picked up the phone and I called Danielle because I wanted to talk it through with her. And she said, I know the same thing happened to me when I got to that spot. So even people who are in publishing, who know all of this information, sometimes the way that it's presented on these websites is difficult, and you don't have someone right there who's going like, oh yeah, that means this. And so it's really helpful, even just for the two of us. We talked it out. We're like, yeah, that's what that means. Oh yeah, that's what that means. Okay, well then we do it this way.
Yeah, like I think the wonkiest one, like that still kind of trips me up, is picking the category, because like if you look at a book on Amazon, kind of if you really pay attention into the listing, somewhere it will say number blah blah in this category, and it shows you the drill down, and that's like from their site you can click on personal development and kind of drill down. And so when you publish a book, you have to place it in one of these categories. And so like I did my homework, like I published a coloring book. And so I'm like, okay, I want it to go here, into adult coloring books. And in the kind of back end publishing space, the drill down categories do not match, like not even close to what is on the front end. And there's a lot of duplicates, and I feel like that we spent probably a good amount of time. I know, especially with 40 weeks, and it was like, where does this go? Mm-hmm. Where do we put it?
Because it was confusing as to, well, it fits here, but it also fits here, but I can't put them in both. I have to pick one, and that really, this descriptor isn't what I would really choose if I were making one up right now. So. Yeah, it gets to be a little bit confusing and frustrating. So having a team on your side is definitely a good choice.
Yeah, someone who has kind of navigated that once or twice before you, at least.
Yeah. And actually, that brings up something, Danielle. You posted an article the other day. And it was really interesting to see how some people use those tag terms about where they're going to be placed to kind of elevate their book in the sales model, because maybe there's no books in Freemasonry. And so
yeah, so there's this great article that I came across, I think it was yesterday. I shared it on Facebook, and we can put it kind of with the show notes for this broadcast, where this person just wanted to see like, okay, what does it really take to be a bestseller? And so he published a book about his foot, and it was one of these, he took a picture of his foot and typed up a one-pager and picked all the free templates and put it on Amazon in some random category like Freemasonry, and was like, okay, let's see if I can be a bestseller. And with like, he bought a copy and had 2 friends buy a copy, like all within a short period of time, and boop, bestseller.
It's crazy.
It's crazy. And so like the article had a really interesting discussion about like what is a bestseller, because the New York Times list bestseller, is kind of one thing, and we could probably talk for a whole hour about the way that works and how there's editorial bias and there's shenanigans that happens there too. But with Amazon, like it's all like there are ways to sort of cheat. And so if you were bestseller in your category at 10 a.m. on Friday
for 1 minute,
and you took your screenshot, you can say, I'm a best-selling author. Which, I mean, this kind of like goes into the whole thing where it's like, what's the title on your business card? Like there's just sort of all of these vanity labels that sometimes feel really important. But that's just not something that I think either one of us have ever really focused on with our books, because I just kind of think it's a bunch of malarkey.
Well, I think that when there's lots of reasons for publishing a book, and if your reason is to share your message, that the idea of like being a bestseller, that would be great. It's not that you wouldn't want that, but at the same time, it's not your primary motivation. So if it happens, that's awesome and woo. But if it doesn't, that's not, it's not something that is a make or break.
Yeah, it's I think you said that really well. Like there is kind of a way to black hat cheat, to get all your friends to buy this time and get it and get the screenshot. And it's but I think there's sort of a slow and steady version of the rise to bestseller, and really looking at how many copies you're selling and the influence that you're having globally and all of those things. I think is probably a better place to focus your energy,
because that's a little bit more like that's hitting at the heart. And if you're not writing it from your heart, what are you writing it from? So I mean that is a really satisfying outcome for you then, in terms of the whole process of writing and publishing, and then seeing how it's impacting the people around you, people that are in your circle, and enabling, like it gives you a venue to touch more people than you would have touched before, and so it's just a win-win all the way around.
Yeah, and I think that kind of touches on a topic we're going to cover in a week or two here about how your book fits into your business. And so like, yes, one piece of that is book sales, and so you can do all kinds of advertising or tweak your copy and just to get somebody to buy the book. But I think that really what's so much more important and to think about strategically is what happens when someone has your book in your hand, and like you want them to read it and for it to touch their heart and for them to be moved by your message, so that they go out and take action some way in the world, to make the world a better place. But then also like that is what makes you tell your friends, oh my God, I read the most amazing book this weekend. And I think that all comes back to like focusing on quality and just really making sure that you are crafting your message with such heart and packaging it in such a way that it just can't help but touch the people who read it.
Yeah. And I think that, right there you hit on something of like every step of the way you're putting your heart into this. Every step of the way you're putting your intention into this. Every step of the way you are sharing this message that you want to reach out to other people. And if you do that with each piece, it's going to be infused in your book from start to finish, and it can't help but come out when the person is reading it, when they have it in their hands.
Yeah, and that's the hard work. Like I think you can sort of be very cerebral and strategize like, oh, there's this hole in the market and I can write this message and like kind of stay at this sort of lofty academic place. But I feel like the books that, really, if you think I'm sort of glancing at my bookshelf, the books on my shelf that really moved me and had this lasting impact on me, it's not my college textbooks. It's these stories where the author really infused their own passion, their own story, into the book.
Well, and that's not to say that there isn't like a hole in the market in that spot. There, you could start at that cerebral part and say, cerebral place, and say, I really feel like this is missing. Well, you feel like it's missing because you're connected to that information, or you're connected to that space, and nothing is there that you want. So you can start from that cerebral place and then say, yes, I need to write a book in this area because it's not here yet. But I have to write my book. I have to write the book that only I can write, that is, like you just said, infused with my story and everything about me. And that's what will make it stand out in the market.
Yeah, I just realized that is actually exactly what happened with my book. I totally forgot about this, that like when I was taking my creative sabbatical, kind of the adult coloring books were not quite as big a craze as they are now, but it was kind of bubbling. And I did a bunch of research on Amazon, and I'm like, there isn't any one about dogs. Like there's cat ones, but like, how has like nobody done a dog one? Like, oh my God, it's going to be the biggest thing. And so I like mapped it all out, and I was going to do these like detailed illustrations in Adobe Illustrator. And I think I made one, and it just was not fun. Like, I just didn't care. And so even though that was kind of where I started, I ended up, moving down the abstract route. If you haven't seen my book before, like this is my style. So it's just totally left field from this. I mean, I'm talking detailed dog illustration is where I started.
Yeah, and so that just goes to show also like the process that you go through. The idea that you have at the start usually isn't exactly what comes out at the end. And so being flexible with that and really being able to tap into, okay, yes, I'm going to do a coloring book. It doesn't have to be a dog coloring book. It can be something that really excites me. And what I find that I'm doing every day is these doodles. Why don't I do a doodling coloring book? This is what calms me. This is what makes me feel good. So that means it's going to make somebody else feel good too.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was like, you're totally right. Like this is, making these was very soothing and therapeutic for me. And so really like when I finally pressed publish, I was like, I don't really care if I sell one copy. Like this book was for me. And I, have an introduction here that just talks about my process that still is very vulnerable. Kind of can't believe that's out in the world, but I'm continually floored, just to hear the impact that it's made on other people. And maybe that very cerebral dog coloring book would have had an impact too, but I don't know if it would have been in quite the same way as this.
Well, you may not have gotten it done as quickly because it wasn't a thing for you.
That's true. I cranked this book out in like 6 weeks, I think, start to finish. Just crazy.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk a little bit more about those like details that sometimes trip people up. Like for instance, the ISBN, buying that. So when you get to something like when you're in something like CreateSpace, and I haven't been in all of the other ones, so I can't say for certain what that looks like, but on CreateSpace, you have options about that. You can have CreateSpace just assign you an ISBN, and so that costs nothing, and they assign you one, boom, you're done. Or you can buy one through them sort of brokering that deal through it's a website called Bowker, Bowker, and they sell all of the ISBNs. And so CreateSpace does kind of like a little partnership with them, and you can get your ISBN for low cost. Is it like
I think it's,
$10?
I think it's $10.
It's $10. Or you can go directly to Bowker. You can purchase your ISBN and some other things in packages and groups. And I think that starts, I want to say, I'm not sure what the lowest interval of like how many you have to buy. Is it
I think you can buy one. So, and it's, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but from what I remember, it was like you could buy one for like $150 or like a pack of 10 for like a little over 300, maybe like the 350 range. And so that service is definitely catered more toward indie publishers. And I ended up, and so there is this kind of like maze that I'm still kind of trying to pick through in terms of like, and maybe I'm jumping ahead of myself a little bit, but some of your choices around the ISBN and where to purchase it ties into your options for distribution. So I don't know if now's the time to dive into that.
I mean, there's lots of different avenues for distribution. When you do something like CreateSpace, obviously Amazon is right there, and they take the least amount of money to make that happen with them basically printing and fulfilling the book orders. So you get obviously all of the royalties except for the portion that Amazon takes to print and fulfill the copies of your book being out there. Most people, that's how they get their books. They go to Amazon. I would say, like 98% of people, that's how they buy books at this time. So that's a really easy choice for you. It's kind of like a no stress sort of choice. If you want to have more control over your distribution, though, there are other ways that you can handle that. Would that be a fair way to describe that, Danielle?
Yeah, I think so. And I realized that we might have just glossed over the fulfillment piece. So just in case you aren't familiar with kind of just like how a book gets printed and fulfilled if you choose to publish on CreateSpace, like let me just kind of run that down for you really quickly. So what happens is, so if you decide to publish with CreateSpace, you upload your files to them, and you have a lot of options. So you can either kind of go through some of their templates like we talked about, or like if you worked with a professional designer, they would provide a file for you, and you have two files. One is for your cover and one is for your interior. So you upload those files and you go through and you kind of tick all your different boxes and put in, this is what I want my Amazon page to say, this is how much I want it to cost, this is the color paper I want, all of those things. And then you press done, and it goes off to Amazon. Usually takes about a day, usually less. And they will run what's called a pre-flight check. And it's a printing term where they are going to check the file that you gave them against their print specifications. And they have a lot of really great help documentation to kind of walk you through that. And I could probably talk for 3 hours about print specs. But, it's just different things where they will look at, your margins. And so they want to make sure that your text isn't going to, get trimmed off the page or get lost here in the middle, little things like that. So they run their check. You get a file back that you can look at. And at this point, you have another choice. You can choose to look at the PDF copy just digitally on the screen of your computer, or you can request a printed proof. So this copy that I actually have right here of the Prosperous Coach is proof. And so this is an earlier version of the book. I think this was before, I think we may have changed this page, but it was like we were able to kind of look and hold the book in our hand to see there were any changes that we wanted to make. I believe there's a small fee to get a hard copy proof. The PDF proof is free. And so once you've checked through it and been like, yep, I'm good, click a couple more buttons, takes Amazon another day or two, they build your listing, and then you just sort of sit back and wait. And this is when you can start to do your own marketing and promotion. And so I know I got a lot of questions from people, like they thought I had a warehouse of my coloring books, and I would like, so the order comes in and I'm running to the post office, and no. That's the beauty of doing something with CreateSpace. So you've uploaded your file, they make it for sale. Let's say I publish my book, Heather wants to buy a copy, she goes on Amazon, places her order, maybe she's got Prime shipping. Amazon prints the book, they package the book, they ship the book, it goes to Heather, and then they like keep a little tally for me in my my author portal, so I can see how many sales I've had, and I get a portion, which is called a royalty. And so Amazon just keeps track of my author royalties for the month, and then they'll hold those royalties kind of in, I don't know if it's an escrow or what the exact proper bank term is, but they hold on to that money for 30 days, just in case someone decides to return the book. So for February, however many royalties I earn in February, by the end of like February 29th, they'll cut me a check on April 1st, and that gets direct deposited into my bank account. And then they also will then report those earnings to the government, and I'll get like a tax form from them at the end of the year.
Yeah.
Did I miss anything?
I don't think you did. That's what print on demand is. So every time that someone orders your book, then they print it and send it out. And also, as by doing your book through something like CreateSpace, you have a discounted rate that you as an author can can purchase your book for. So whereas people, and actually this actually goes to another point that we haven't talked about, is setting your book price. That's something else that you do when you're setting up that whole process, ticking those boxes, answering those questions. You are the person who picks the book price. So that involves looking around and saying, okay, what are the other books like mine cost? How much do I want to make? And because it will show you, okay, if you put in, I want my book to cost $15.99, that then, because of all of it knows, okay, your book has this many pages, it's going to be black and white, it's going to be this big, and that's the trim size. All of those calculations go in, and then it comes back and says, okay, with the specifications for your book, if you charge $15.99, you are going to receive this much per book. That's how they figure that out.
Yeah, and there's a great public calculator, and we can include a link to that again in the show notes. So you can, go in and just sort of hypothetically, before you ever even start your book, just start to kind of play around with some of that math, because you may not be able to offer the book for as inexpensively as you might like, because it costs a certain amount to produce it.
Right, and that's what happened with this book. And, that's why she did not do a print on demand solution for this. But so you're choosing the book price, and then when it's time for you to order your copies, you get a very reduced rate in terms of buying your book for yourself. So let's say I want to sell my books also from my office or something like that. I would buy, let's say I bought 40 books at a time or 20 books at a time or something like that. They're shipped to my house just like they would be shipped to anyone else's house who ordered my books. And then I can use those as, I could sell them, but then I can also use them as giveaways, marketing material for my business and things like that. But you do get a reduced rate on however many copies you want. There's no cap on that. So someone like Balboa Press, which is that self-publishing arm of Hay House. They have they'll give you a certain amount of copies for free, and it's something like maybe 10 copies or something like that, depending on the package that you.
Yeah, I think it goes from like 10 maybe up to 100 on like the really high-end packages that are like $10,000.
Right. So yeah, there's different options with the different packages that you're buying there, but they'll give you a certain amount of copies free, and then I'm not sure actually about like after that if you want to. I don't know if you get much of a discount in terms of buying your book there. That's something I will look into, because I'm not absolutely sure on that one.
Yeah, and so it's like the other thing too is like your gratitude journal, you have it also, it's on the shelves in some local stores in your area, and you brokered those deals yourself.
Yes. Yeah. So I, took my gratitude journal to some different local stores, and they said, "Oh, this is definitely something we'd like to sell." And so there's different types of deals you can do with that. You can either like say, "Okay, I'll sell you these wholesale for this price," or you can say, like sort of on as they're bought. Like I have two different types of deals with different local stores. So one of them, I just sold them wholesale, then they charge whatever they want to charge, and then but I have my money right there. And there's another store that I sell my books at that every time they sell a book, they give me money basically. So it's different depending on who you're dealing with.
Yeah. And so, I mean, what's great is you have all of that flexibility, as the author. And just to kind of give you just some hard numbers, I can use my book as an example. So my book is I believe it's 108 pages, and it retails for $12.99. And when I order my, in terms of royalties, I think I get about $5 as a royalty. And I can order an author copy of my book. I think when I did the math, so you also have to pay shipping costs on top of that. That's sometimes and books are heavy. So I think I ordered 20 books with the shipping. When I divided all the math out, it came out to approximately $3 a book. So that's my hard cost as the author. So, that gives you a place to then, if you're looking at wholesale, I can go and sell it wholesale for $6 or $7, and then that gives the retailer still a place to mark it up, to the cost on the back. So hopefully that kind of gives you a little sense of sort of the differences. But I mean, it's great because I can buy copies, to give away, for $3 instead of $12.99, which is a really nice option to have as the author.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that we'll talk about that more when we talk about your book and your business type of thing too. So, but that kind of dovetails into that. So let's see, we've talked about your ISBN. We didn't really talk about applying for copyright. Now, technically, when you write a book, you are the owner of that, you are the owner of that material. And you, by publishing it and by writing it, you are, it's yours. However, it's a good idea to send a copy of what you've written to be copyrighted by the government, so it sits under it, so there is record of it. So if there was ever any question about oh, did I write this, did somebody else write, they say I wrote that first, and so then that means there's no question. That is not an expensive thing to do. It's, I think, around $30 or $40. You send them your manuscript at the most complete that you can get it. And the only drawback here is that it takes anywhere from 6 weeks to 6 or 9 months, depending on how backed up they are and what's going on. That. Just a little tidbit.
No, which was super helpful because it was I think I kind of knew that and I totally forgot until we were prepping. for this. I was like, oh yeah, I still have to do that for my book.
Mhm.
And it's like you said, it's $30, a couple pieces of paperwork to fill out, and it's just good peace of mind to help protect your work.
Yeah, it's a formality. But now, so that doesn't have to be done when, like, before. I mean, you can be publishing your book and it's off at, like, it's off in that process of copyright, and that's completely okay. Something that is different than that is the Library of Congress control number, and you'll see that in the front of Blog Post.
Yeah, so there's this great page in the front of every book that you probably skip right over. It's got all this fine print.
That's the copyright page.
Yep, so this is in Show Your Work by Austin Kleon. So this is the copyright page. You can see the ISBN information is right here. And then, did I grab one?
Is the Library of Congress number in there?
Oh yeah, here we go. Up here it has the Library of Congress,
Yep.
publication data, and that's like where you'll kind of see these different categories that it'll talk about. So like for this one, it says, this is in career development, success in business, business networks, and then there's another number in there.
So that you have to send off, and that has to be done before your book is published, though. That can't be done after the fact. And actually, CreateSpace has a service where they will do that for you for $25. So that is a handy sort of thing on their site. They'll do that for you for $25, but that has to be done with kind of like the final proof of your book before it actually publishes.
And there's a bit of a waiting game on that too. I think it's 6 to 8 weeks at least. It might even be longer. I can't remember.
Yeah. So just something to keep in mind. It's not an essential thing that you have to do, but if you want to do it, you need to leave time in your schedule for that to happen. But you don't have to do it to publish your book. Still will be sold just as it would have been sold.
Yep. And so that, so we've talked about ISBN, we talked about copyright, we've talked about Library of Congress. Is there anything else on our hit list?
The only other thing that, I know that, that there's a couple other things that CreateSpace does offer users. They offer a Kindle Conversion kind of service if you want to do that. And I know that there's costs involved with that. I'm not as clear on what those are, but I'm sure that they have different packages there as well in terms of, a basic or a simple or more complex, depending on the amount of visuals you have and how long it is and everything in that case. They also have kind of like a marketing copy essentials package too. And this goes back to, when you're doing that process of ticking those boxes and filling out that stuff to get your book into the Amazon space for sale, you have to write a description, you have to write back cover copy, you have to write all these different pieces, and they will do that for a fee, and it's a service that they provide as well. But I think that starts at around $250 or $300.
Yeah, and just to kind of back up and give a little bit more context on that, I've gotten a lot of questions about ebooks versus print books. And what kind of files do I need for each? And can I just use the same PDF? And what you need to know about ebooks is that you cannot use a PDF. You need to have some kind of a live text document. I believe that you can use a Microsoft Word. There's like tools to convert it. You can also, there are plugins and things like that within InDesign, which is the professional tool, a professional program. And there's just all sorts of things. But really, under an ebook is actually closer to a website under the hood. Like, it is written with HTML code, very archaic HTML code. And so there is only like certain types of formatting that you can do. And that's because if you think about, if you've read a book on Kindle, you can click a button and make the text bigger, you can make it smaller, you can change the font, you can have it on a dark background. And so all of that is done at a code level. And so that's why, like, you need a live text document that can be manipulated, whereas when you're finally ready to go to print on a print book, each page in the PDF almost becomes like a picture that gets printed, even though they're words. And I might be going off into the technical weeds, so I'll stop there.
That's helpful to know what is involved with that.
So that's a little ebook versus print book, and you can do lots and lots of nerdy research if you want to know more.
So we've just given you a lot of information. Crash course in self-publishing. But if you have any questions, feel free to ask either Danielle or I, and we will be able to, if we don't know the answer, we will find out. But between the two of us, we have a lot of resources that we can point to. And that kind of brings us to something that we're doing right now. It's called the Writer's Workshop. And we are creating this program for writers. It's a 7-month program. And basically, we want to help you through every aspect of the process, from the very beginning with your big idea or your table of contents to the end with publishing your book. So that includes, all the discussions that you would have with me in terms of being a coach and an editor, and all the discussions you would have with Danielle about your book, and talking about marketing, branding, and design, and then having her design your book too, and then holding that book at the end of the program, and seeing it on Amazon. And so it includes all of that, plus a community of writers. There's 2 group calls a month where we'll be workshopping your manuscript or your ideas, whether it's some marketing things or branding things, or pieces of the manuscript, to also having some content and coaching based calls as well. So that starts in April, and we are currently enrolling, and we have some specials until the end of this month, February 29th.
Yeah, so just until Monday, we have some extra bonus calls, so you can actually, get started right away. You can book a call with Heather and I, and jump in on your outline, and get things moving even before April. So the website that has all the details is www.writersworkshophd, like Heather and Danielle.com. And please also just feel free to reach out directly to either Heather or myself on Facebook, or through the website, if you'd like to get in touch and have a conversation, and just to see if this might be a good fit for where you're at right now.
All right. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.